Chapter 4. Don't even think about it. There's plenty of room. The blonde walking with Blaine up the stairs sounded just like Farron. From half a flight back, Melody had no trouble making out their words or the flirty tone. We're just going for the weekend. We'll be back by Monday, I swear. I'm busy, Lana, Blaine said, and at that moment his gaze swung backward down the steps as they turned at the landing. He saw her and did a double take. In the next instant, he looked as if she was his long-lost accountant come back to tell him he'd won the lottery. Melody, I didn't see you there. Wow, what are you doing here? He stopped, which stopped Lana too, as he waited for Melody to join them. She was sure her face registered every question in her consciousness. Pushing a strand of hair behind her ear, she shifted her biology book to the other hand. Oh, hi. I'm going to class? Putting her hand on her book just as she reached where they stood, she smiled at him. What are you doing? The fact that Lana was shooting daggers at her with her eyes did nothing to calm her nerves. She swallowed, but kept her gaze on him, still trying to understand the situation. I can't believe I haven't seen you around. Have you been going to class all semester? He asked, as if he really was glad to see her. The yes lodged in her throat, so she just nodded. The question of if he noticed her because of the 4 pounds she'd lost crossed her mind, but she beat that back to focus on more important things. I graduate next spring if I can get through biology. Biology ate my lunch, Blaine said, as if he had no clue the gorgeous blonde at his other elbow was getting more and more annoyed by the moment. Who do you have? Dr. McDonald? Oh, you poor thing. Blaine arched his back and threw his gaze to the ceiling. You have my sympathies. Then he stopped. Listen, why don't you give me your number and I can let you see my old tests? I know he gives different ones each time, but at least then you'd have something to study off of. The suggestion was so out of the blue, Melody knew she must be dreaming. Oh, you don't have to. Blaine smiled that mind-mushing smile. I knew I kept them for some reason. Lana glanced at her watch as Melody searched for a free piece of paper to write her number. I think I'll just meet you up there, Lana finally said, and Melody heard the annoyance. Barely turning to her, Blaine smiled. That's cool. I'll see you in a few. With a not-so-kind look, Lana flounced off. The second she was gone, Melody could have sworn she saw Blaine sigh with relief. However, that made no sense at all, so she quickened her search for the pen. I'm sorry. Nah, it's cool. He leaned against the beige-tiled wall as other students jostled up the steps behind them. Finally, she found a pen and a small slip of paper. In her best handwriting, she transferred her number. Giving it to him, she let her gaze fall to their feet. You really don't have to, though. No biggie. He looked at the paper and then stuffed the number in the pocket of his charcoal slacks and glanced up the stairs. Well, I'd better get. Don't want to be late. Yeah, me too. She hugged her books closer to her. They climbed the second half of the stairs, and it became clear Blaine was stopping before her. I'll see you later. Later. And with that, she left him standing on the second floor, watching her climb out of sight. Blaine wasn't particularly proud of using Melody to get out of Lana's crosshairs, but it was too convenient not to. However, after class he made sure to watch lest Melody find him and do something that could ruin everything, like follow him to his car. At the green Toyota, he glanced around to make sure no one he knew was watching. Quickly, he jumped in and pumped the pedal. This was always the most dangerous time of all. If anyone ever saw, if anyone ever suspected, it's why he parked in the parking lot half a mile away that was reserved for latecomers and idiots. It's also why he parked on the other side of the mall and walked around it every day to work. Once again, he coaxed Lillian to life and spun out into traffic. Thankfully, the darkness blinded most of the world. In the safe anonymity of traffic, Blaine allowed himself to relax. He settled back into the seat and let his mind wander through the maze that was his life. December, and he would no longer have to live this double life. He would get a job at some architectural firm, get himself a real apartment, somehow find a way to take care of Dylan, and get him through school too. This whole 86-hour-day thing would be a distant memory. As he drove, he remembered the little slip of paper in his pocket. At a stoplight, he fished around and found it. 3 lights down, he picked it up and examined it. Melody Todd. Interesting. He'd known her almost a year, but he'd never even thought to ask her last name. He wondered then what else he didn't know about her. The traffic moved, and he joined it, only momentarily forgetting he was driving. He thought about their previous couple of meetings. She was cordial, but not fawning. Not like Farron or Lana. Just why, he couldn't quite reach, but he felt it nonetheless. Because it was safe and had nothing to do with him or his crushing existence, he let his mind wind through the questions about her. What was she taking in school? How close was she to graduating? How had she come to be at Anderson Community College? The thought of actually calling her drifted through him. It wouldn't hurt. Then again, it wouldn't make anything less complicated either. With that thought, he flipped the slip of paper to the dashboard and pulled onto his street. He wouldn't call her. He knew it, and he hoped she did too. Melody pushed back at the thoughts of the overwhelming hunger gnawing at her. Blaine Donovan had spoken to her, asked for her number even. That couldn't be a coincidence. Her strategy was working. 40 more pounds or so, and maybe all the Blaines of the world would be falling at her feet. It wasn't a given, but the chance meeting on the stairs had given her more hope than she'd had in months. Thursday, she hoped. Each ring of the phone while she was studying made her heart jump. But it was never him. Once it was Deanna from math class wanting to know if she wanted to go to the bars with some of them on Saturday. She declined. After all, by Saturday she might well have a date with a great guy, and she didn't want to have to share him. Friday was more of the same, except that a creeping feeling of he isn't going to call had begun whispering in the back of her mind. She chose to ignore it, and because it was rather quiet, that wasn't too hard. By Saturday at work, she snapped at 3 people, and Nathan had to tell her to cool it. Hope still reigned, but it was losing the battle. As she studied for the biology test on Monday night at the kitchen table, she glanced at the clock every so often. Why wasn't he calling? Had something horrible happened? Some accident? Some emergency? That was stupid and lame, but it was the only way she could think of to keep the real reason he wasn't calling from her heart. Tuesday was a blur of hoping and giving up. Hoping, but knowing. When she pulled up to school on Wednesday, however, hope was losing the fight badly. She got out and dodged and weaved her way across the highway. If she could just see him, get a glimpse of him, see if his leg was in a cast up to his neck or something, anything that might explain that what she knew wasn't real. At the drinking fountain on the first floor, she caught sight of him striding in the door. He had his glasses on, which was a whole new look for him in her eyes, more sophisticated and suave. But there was no cast, not even an obvious limp. Instead, he strode right to the staircase and started up. Feeling stupid, but having no better plan, she scooted to the staircase which spiraled up the other direction in a mirror to the one he was on. Carefully, she climbed, catching glimpses of him just above her on the opposite side. Sage button-down shirt, pressed just right, charcoal pants. It was when she caught a glimpse of his shoes that her heart turned over and tears invaded her heart. She wondered if he even thought about what it would be like to run into her again, or if he even cared enough to be embarrassed if he did. Would he even remember he had gotten her number? Probably not. One thing was for sure in the whole stinking mess. She was sure to fail biology now. Blaine didn't breathe a full breath until he reached the second floor. He had some lame excuse about going out of town ready in case he saw her, but he hated lying, especially to nice people like Melody. She didn't deserve to get mixed up in his off-kilter life. It was far better for her to stay as far away as possible. That's what he would have done if he'd had a choice. That thought dogged him through the evening and all the way home, where he found his mother passed out in a heap on the couch. Dylan was on the floor next to her, holding her hand, his little eyes closed in sleep that was anything but peaceful. With a sigh that really wasn't, Blaine put his backpack on the table and went into guardian mode. He picked up Dylan and had to fight to stay standing under the weight and length of his little brother, who was becoming anything but little. Down the darkened hallway, he weaved, being careful not to clunk Dylan's head on the walls or the door jamb. The kid had obviously had a tough enough night without giving him an additional headache. At the bed, Blaine worked the covers backward with his knee, and then lay Dylan down. Blaine pulled the blankets up, stood back, and shook his head. They had to get out of here. Thursday night, Melody never even noticed the phone ring until her mother called to her. "Melody!" "Coming," she answered, flipping the book closed. With any luck, she wouldn't make it back to finish the reading anyway. In the living room, she flopped on the couch. "Hello?" "Melody?" the soft female voice asked. "Yes." The last thing she wanted was to have the telemarketers on her trail. "Oh, good. I'm glad I caught you. This is Lisa Taylor, Jeff's wife?" Confusion slid into and around Melody. Lisa Taylor? She didn't know Oh, Lisa. Dread slithered through the confusion. "Eve's friend." "Yeah, that's me," Lisa laughed happily, but nothing in Melody reciprocated the feeling. "Listen, we're going to have a little housewarming party for AJ and Eve on Saturday night. We were hoping you could come." To a housewarming party for that traitor? "Oh, I don't know. I might be scheduled to work." She wasn't, but she could arrange it if necessary. "Can't you get off?" Lisa asked. "I know it would mean so much to AJ if you were there." "Yeah, right." "Really," Lisa said when the pause lasted too long. "Please, Melody, we'd love it if you came." Not one piece of her wanted to say yes, but she couldn't say no. Cutting off every possibility of ever seeing him again would surely kill her. "Okay." "Yeah?" "Yeah, I'll come." "Great." Lisa quickly gave her directions and said great 3 more times before it was time to sign off. "Well, I guess we'll see you about 7 on Saturday. Oh, and Melody, you can bring a date if you want." What Melody said after that, she had no clue, because every synapse in her brain was honed to that one word: date. "Hey, sorry to call you at work," the male voice said on the other end of the Harmons phone line when Blaine was paged at 4 o'clock on Friday. "This is Jeff, Eve's friend. Listen, I won't keep you long, but we're having a little party." For 12 hours since he'd hung up the phone, Blaine had considered calling Melody. It wouldn't be a crime exactly, but after his previous behavior, she had every right to ram the phone down his throat, and he knew it. So he didn't call. Instead, he called Peyton. This has been For Real, Book 3, The Courage Series, written by Staci Stallings, narrated by Becky Dowdy. Copyright 2012 by Staci Stallings. Production copyright 2014 by Staci Stallings.
Like and subscribe to the Staci Stallings YouTube channel so you never miss a second of the story.